In our lessons today, God challenges Abram to trust, tells him not to be afraid. He still hasn't been given a son, an heir, and yet God asked him to keep on trusting in his promise. Psalm 27, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom then shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom then shall I be afraid? Paul, meanwhile, is cautioning the Philippians that there are seductive people out there saying there's an easier way to live the life. You can't focus on the earthly things, he says. They will lead you astray. Stand in the Lord. Do not be afraid. And the gospel addresses fear as well. It begins with some folks, Pharisees no less, coming to Jesus saying, look, you have reason to be afraid. This guy is after you. There's plenty out there in the world to make us afraid. Turn on whatever outlet it is you want to see the news. There is no fix or no vaccine, no quick way to avoid our fears, no way to suddenly be able to say it's all okay, there is nothing to fear. But we do get to choose what we do in the face of our fear. We can give into our fears and let them define us, or we can gather strength from the rest of the brood and stand up to them and move on our way with Jesus. After the first year of seminary, you go and do a clinical pastoral education summer in a hospital or somewhere. And so part of my CPE was doing your genealogy. They make you put your family tree up on some newsprint, and then this guy with a degree comes in and assesses your family system with a magic marker. It is a beautiful experience, let me tell you. And so I got interested in that and started doing some ancestry genealogy work and bought that family tree maker system and started putting dates in just to see where my folks had come from and whose people I was. And some of my folks came from England, straight to Virginia. Some came from a beautiful Scotland, McClellan Castle, or so the story goes that I keep telling. If you haven't done your genealogy work, you ought to get started. It's always something that is fun and intriguing, and sometimes you feel like you've waited too late to lose some information. We finally found something in our family tree, as often happens, something that we didn't necessarily want to find, and so my family insisted I close the doors pretty fast, and I did. Fear is a powerful thing in family systems. Some of you may know that. But it's been 17 years, and the advertising from Ancestry.com finally got the best of me a few weeks ago. Decided perhaps it could be a neat Lenten experience. You don't want me to give up Diet Coke or chocolate. I just become grumpy and my preaching goes downhill. So it's not what you want me to do. And so I took up kind of looking for my roots as a Lenten discipline. My file came back up really fast, and there was all the work I had done. The thing with Ancestry.com right now, though, is that it's connected to everything and everybody. And so suddenly your web family tree pops up, and in the upper right-hand corner of each of the people flutters this little green leaf. It is a hint leaf. And it means that they've found something about that person. And so, as one is wont to do, you stay up really late because this is addictive. And you click on that little fluttering leaf, and all of a sudden you've found all these scanned documents, my grandfather's draft card, my grandparents' marriage license in the handwriting of someone back in the 1800s. The census records are all there. I'm still not quite sure why my great-grandmother was in New York in 1920, but anyway, that's another story. It becomes a scavenger hunt. You just can't find out enough. And so on Monday night, it was after 11 o'clock, and I was clicking on leaves left and right and finding out stuff. Some of it's right, some of it's not. And found my great-grandfather fourth great-grandfather, to be exact, Allen Wiggins. Born in 1794 in Middle Georgia. I'm from Middle Georgia. He was born that way. The title of the hint is 1850 U.S. Federal Census - Slave Schedules. I grew up in the middle part of Georgia. This was inevitable, but I had never seen it in print. My great-grandfather owned 24 slaves in 1850. Their ages, their sexes, their races, all written there in that slave schedule. I didn't sleep well Monday night. What do you do with that kind of information? I'm still processing it. I'm pretty sure, actually I know for a fact, I'm not the only one this morning in this church being a descendant of a slave owner. I didn't own slaves myself, but now it's part of my story. For a few days, I painted fourth great-grandpa Allen out as the enemy. When I read today's gospel, I thought of him as the fox. I was ashamed. I felt guilty. But what good does that do this morning? I went back, looked again at the census slave schedules. He had fewer slaves in 1830 and 40. Suppose he was successful in whatever he was doing. Not successful enough to leave much for those of us who followed. The slaves are only listed by age, sex, and race, no names. 10 of them were under the age of 16. But that wasn't his only defining life story, was it? He also fought for our country in the War of 1812 and endured the death of 5 of his children. I don't know why I shared this story with you this morning. I just felt I had to. My family may not appreciate it being posted on YouTube. But the truth sets you free. We get to choose what we do with the foxes of our past. Do we learn from it and look at the fox and say, thank you very much, but I've got things to do today and tomorrow and the next day to redeem the world? In Psalm 27, the writer of the psalm is surrounded by evildoers, intent on taking away his life. Surrounded with no place to go, despite these realities, the psalmist clings to a vision of hope that is built on faith. I believe, the psalmist declares, that I shall see the goodness of the Lord. Instead of giving up or yielding to fear, he yields to faith. He puts all their energy into believing instead of fearing. From God, Abram hears, do not be afraid, put your trust in me. Jesus speaks this morning about Jerusalem. There are many images of the city of Jerusalem from the first century, when you go to Google that. And so we decided to use the Jerusalem cross on the front of your cover. It is rich in symbolism and meaning. Goes by several different names. It represents Jesus' command to spread the gospel around the world, the mission starting in Jerusalem. It was part of the coat of arms of the short-lived Jerusalem kingdom. It is a collection of 5 crosses. You see the big one and the 4 around it. The big one made up of T's kind of going in. Those are tall crosses representing the Old Testament. The other 4 representing the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or the evangelists. 5 crosses also representing the wounds of Jesus. The big one, the one in his side. The other 4, his hands and his feet. And it's also called the Pilgrim's Cross. The large central cross represents the pilgrim, and the other 4 represent those who pray and support for the pilgrim on their way. As beautiful as it is, though, it didn't start out that way. It was originally from the coat of arms of Godfrey of Bouillon during the First Crusade. The crusade when the knights and peasants and serfs from many nations of Western Europe traveled over land and sea all the way down to Jerusalem, where they launched an assault of the city and captured it in July of 1099, massacring many of the Muslim, Christian, and Jewish inhabitants in the name of Christ. Very little of our history and our symbolism is pure or perfect. Very little of the history of our country or our religion or our families is pure or perfect. It is how we choose to use that history that matters. You can wear it like a fox, or you can wear it like a hen. Given the numbers of animals available to Jesus to choose for images this morning, it's kind of curious he chooses a hen. Don't really know why. He could have chosen like the Exodus image of the mighty eagle that is soaring, or Hosea's stealthy leopard. I mean, a leopard has power, right? To take on a fox, or the proud lion of Judah. This would be better, Jesus. But no, it is a hen. Pretty typical of Jesus, actually, always turning things upside down, giving to people prizes to losers, and paying last first is what he does. So, of course, he chooses a hen, which is about as weak as you can get. Jesus won't be king of the jungle in this or any other story. What he will be is the mother hen who comes and stands between the chicks and those who mean to do them harm. She has no fangs or claws or gripping muscles. All she has is her willingness to shield her babies with her own body. If the fox wants them, he has to kill the hen first. And that is the amazing God who has claimed us. The amazing God who laid down his life for us. The one who told Herod, tell that fox that I have no time for him right now. Today and tomorrow, I'm busy clearing out the demons and healing the sick. The third day, I'm wrapping things up. Not distracted from his task, diverted from his aims, but serving, giving, and coming to be among us. Perhaps you saw 2 video clips this week. The first one is just really great. I'll put links to these somewhere. But it's a rock concert, which I don't normally go to, but it's a shaky video of this rock concert going on, a headbanging woman singing. And she sees somebody in the audience who clearly is really just all into this concert. It has been her life's dream to attend this concert and hear this artist singing. And so finally, she pulls this woman up on stage and gives her the microphone and lets her sing to her heart's content. And this girl is not someone who would ever be filmed walking the red carpet of the Grammys. She is not in shape. She is not well dressed. She is all into this moment in her life. She grabs the microphone, her glasses fall off as she's banging her head. She jumps up on top of the speaker because she's going to dance on top of the speaker like she's seen before, and she falls flat on her you-know-what. And she tries to sit up, but she's not of a stature that she can do that by herself, and so she just lays back down and keeps singing, and the head singer realizes what's going on and goes and lays down right next to her and keeps singing. And then the bass player with his bass goes, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to lay down. He goes and lays down, and the other guitarist, and they sing the rest of the song, lying flat on the stage. There's another video, and this one, the tugging at your heartstrings, it's a little dog who is clearly malnourished and is in a kennel of some sort. You can see the chain link fence and won't pay attention to his food, and is kind of crying. And so the vet decides the only way to solve that is to get in the kennel with him. And he takes 2 stainless steel bowls, and he's got his cereal he's eating in one, and leaves the dog food in the other, and the dog keeps looking up at him, and every once he pets his head every once in a while, and the dog keeps looking up, and finally looks down his bowl and says, must be food in here that I can eat. And he starts eating, and they finish their breakfast together. Our God is that one that comes and lies down on the stage with us and gets in our kennel and eats with us. that we are nourished. That is the God that we worship, that redeems our past and gives us strength to deal with our fears. I could sit down, but you got to get Harper Lee in here somewhere today. And so To Kill a Mockingbird is probably my favorite book, and God rest her soul, Harper Lee went on to the greater life. And there is that story where the lynch mob is going to get Tom. Atticus bravely stands in the way of the mob because he knows if he steps aside, an innocent man would die at the hands of fear. Atticus, however, not only shows courage, but also tries to teach his children in that moment about facing their fears. Atticus says, I wanted you to see what real courage is. Instead of getting the idea that courage is a man with a gun in his hand, it's when you know you're lit before you begin, but you begin anyway, and you see it through no matter what. You rarely win, but sometimes you do. Atticus shows how real courage is not overcoming the fear to shoot a gun, but to go through with life even when you know the odds are against you. Facing our fears and telling our truth sets us free. In that great Advent hymn, Come Thou Long Expected Jesus, born to set our people free, from our fears and sins release us, let us find our rest in Thee. Gathered on the wings of God in community this morning, offer up your fears in this safe brood and turn towards God. Call on God for help to tell your truth, come whence it may, cost whatever it will. And then go forth bearing that cross, the cross of Christ, wounded, crucified, died, but risen. And bring others into the comforting, healing, forgiving, transforming embrace of God. Amen.